Hey everybody, and welcome to Freelance. I'm going to be covering how much you can make online from masks, toilet paper, hand sanitizers, and other pandemic supplies in 2020 and how viable it really is. So if you like this concept of the video, make sure to listen into the whole video and make sure to subscribe to the channel, comment below about what your personal input is on the whole pandemic and coronavirus and all that kind of stuff going on in 2020 and what might happen in 2021 and beyond. And now some of the recent sales here, as you can see, you have masks that are selling for rather inflated prices. And the problem with the mask isn't that you're going to have a hard time selling them. The problem is that you're going to have a hard time finding them at this point for inventory purposes. And as you can see here, the mask sales kind of slowed down a little bit. There is some still coming in through different varieties, but this is just some of the more recent sales that we're selling at inflated prices through desperation, fear mongering, and all that kind of stuff. And honestly, you're gonna still get a potential to sell, but the likelihood that you're gonna find the inventory to sell it if you don't already have it is very slim. The bonus part is that to ship out something like this in a box, what have you, is much cheaper than shipping out the larger items, which I'm going to get into. But you could do something like this and put these in an envelope, even a padded envelope, and probably pay less than $5 to ship it out to people, whereas the cost of shipping for higher ticket items is going to cost more. The other thing you want to worry about is buying too much that you're stuck with inventory when the fear cools off a little bit and you're stuck with too much of it and no one wants it, or no one wants it for the price you want to sell it at. Another recent one popular thing here is toilet paper, but the toilet paper has a lot of costs in itself from basically having too large of an inventory and not enough space to store it in, of course. So if you buy a bulk load of toilet paper, you got to factor in where exactly you're going to store it in the meantime while it's selling. And although it might sell quickly, you really don't have that much room. And toilet paper is still selling pretty well. Not sure why people are so desperate to get toilet paper, but it seems to be pretty popular. There's a four roll for $25, which is kind of funny, and it was purchased as recently as today. But the problem that you're going to have here, I'll show you guys here in just a second, is that the cost. So this one sold for $25. So let's say he had to stick it in I don't know, a medium-sized, small to medium-sized box. So he's already looking at $10 to $15 range just for what he shipped it in. And depending on the weight, can vary in cost as well. Then you have PayPal fees, and then you have, general just fees in general from the purchase, whether it's a listing fee or whether it's just using eBay in general, depending on how he sold it. Then you got to pay taxes on that into the next year. So all of these things are going to add up. And although he still might be making profit, is the scale worth it for the maybe $4 to $8 per sale that he might be getting? Now, some might be selling for more than that, of course. Then it becomes a little bit more viable, but the reality is that you're not going to be able to be one of those selling for the higher end price. A lot of these kind of fads are best to catch for pandemics at the beginning of the pandemic or early on into it, because as the hype or the fear dies down a little bit, even if it picks up a little bit, you're not going to get the prices that you were getting when you initially started. So if you catch the initial hype, you get the big spike profits. But beyond that, it's just going to trickle down and you're going to end up stuck with a lot of inventory that you can't get rid of, and no one's going to really want that at that point. Hand sanitizer still selling pretty well, but the problem, once again, is that shipping costs are high, and you're thinking, well, it's just a little bottle, but a lot of people don't realize that they're considered hazardous materials, and they are very limited, at least from the UPS service, to accept that. If you go through FedEx or UPS, they can get very costly because they got to treat it with much more care and safety precautions, even though it's just a hand sanitizer. Now, of course, you can decide to say that it's not hazardous and just avoid that, whether it's even if it was for like batteries or stuff like that. But you can get in a lot of legal or liability trouble if at one point they randomly decide to open and they find out that that's what you're shipping. And although not to fearmonger you guys, you can get potential big fines and or you can go to potentially jail depending on the severity of the case, especially through the UPS or US Postal Service or whoever you might be shipping it through. So they're very reluctant to let you ship these kind of materials. And although you wouldn't think a hand sanitizer is dangerous, it is considered a hazardous material, so there's extra costs in shipping and procedures to ship it out properly. I'm sure a lot of these people from the arbitrage communities are not really following these guidelines and they're just trying to ship it out as cheap as possible, but you can get in a lot of trouble for doing so. And then, of course, the last thing I wanted to cover is if you catch it at the wrong time or you try to overdo it, you're gonna end up like this guy here. He had over 17,000 bottles of hand sanitizer. As they say, nowhere to sell it. He got banned on both eBay and Amazon. And I guess at this point, he might be viable in selling it elsewhere, maybe through something like Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. But he's going to have a hard time unloading that much inventory through those places, whereas in an online outlets you had a little bit more viable of an option, and through eBay, through Amazon, or what have you, Amazon's simply just not going to let you anymore. They've always been a little bit iffy about drop shippers. eBay is a little bit more lax on that, although they technically don't allow them. And as you can see here, he had posted 300 bottles of hand sanitizer, immediately sold them all for between 8 and 70. So initially he was making a lot of monies and during the hype of the pandemic, and then the next day, so you can read here, Amazon pulled his items and thousands of other listings for sanitizer, wipes, and face masks. The company suspended some of the sellers behind the listing and warned many others if they kept running up prices, they'd lose their accounts. eBay did very similar. Ironically, Amazon and eBay in parts are kind of a monopoly for certain markets and certain niches. So for them to do this, I'd assume was through like a government scrutiny or something to that regard. Of course, in the end, if you're stuck with a lot of inventory, you don't know where to sell it, you can buy through flip a domain name, or you go through GoDaddy or various other different places, what have you. A list is some below that you can consider, and you can make the domain, purchase the domain around keywords, and you can resell it that way as well. You can also make a website around that, where if you don't want the inventory, you can actually just simply get the Amazon affiliate link, eBay affiliate link, and you can just simply link to that, and then whatever sales you generate, you profit from, and you don't have any inventory, and there's no risk, and there's no cost outside of the hosting of the domain name. So you might spend $5 to $8, but you might get thousands in return simply because you chose the right domain name and the right keywords. If you have any questions about that, I could talk to you guys about it in the comments below, and you can check out the Discord channel if you want more direct input from me as a person. If you have any other recommendations of other kind of pandemic supplies that might be viable in the future or in the present even, feel free to leave them in the description below and share your own input on that. Thanks for listening in and have a wonderful day.